Welcome to English Language and Literature. Today, we will be discussing Emily Bronte's famous novel, Wuthering Heights. Written in 1847, this classic novel has captivated readers for generations with its dark and twisted tale of love, revenge, and the destructive power of obsession. Without further ado, let's dive into it. Wuthering Heights is a novel written by Emily Bronte and published in 1847. The novel is set in the moors of Yorkshire, England, and follows the story of two families, the Earnshaws and the Lintons. The novel begins with the introduction of Mr. Lockwood, a tenant who has just rented Thrushcross Grange from the landlord, Mr. Heathcliff. Mr. Lockwood visits his landlord at Wuthering Heights, the nearby property owned by Mr. Heathcliff. There, he meets a young woman named Cathy and a rough, uncivilized man named Hareton. He also becomes intrigued by the history of the Earnshaw family, who used to own Wuthering Heights. Mr. Lockwood soon becomes obsessed with the history of the Earnshaws and their relationship with the Lintons. He learns that the Earnshaws once took in a young orphan boy named Heathcliff, who was mistreated by the Earnshaws' son Hindley. However, Heathcliff develops a strong bond with Cathy, and the two fall in love. Hindley, after the death of his wife, becomes even more abusive to Heathcliff and eventually banishes him from Wuthering Heights. Cathy marries Edgar Linton, a wealthy neighbor, but continues to have feelings for Heathcliff. Heathcliff, who has returned to the area as a wealthy man, seeks revenge on Hindley and the Lintons. As Mr. Lockwood continues to visit Wuthering Heights, he learns more about the complicated relationships between the characters. Cathy becomes ill and dies, leaving Heathcliff devastated. Heathcliff then becomes increasingly erratic and seeks revenge on those he believes have wronged him. The novel ends with Mr. Lockwood returning to Thrushcross Grange, still trying to understand the complex history of the Earnshaw and Linton families. In the second part of Wuthering Heights, the focus shifts to the next generation of characters. Cathy and Edgar Linton's daughter, also named Catherine, grows up alongside Hareton Earnshaw, Hindley's son, at Wuthering Heights. Catherine is initially repelled by Hareton's lack of education and refinement, but they gradually form a bond. Heathcliff, consumed by his grief and desire for revenge, becomes more and more unstable. He forces Catherine to marry his own son, Linton, in order to secure his control over Thrushcross Grange after Edgar Linton's death. However, Linton is weak and sickly, and Catherine is miserable in her marriage. Meanwhile, Heathcliff's obsession with Cathy Earnshaw only grows stronger, and he begins to have visions of her. Eventually, he dies, and Catherine and Hareton inherit Wuthering Heights. As the novel concludes, it is clear that the legacy of the past has deeply affected the next generation of characters. However, it is also suggested that with time and a willingness to move beyond old grievances, a new future may be possible for the families of Wuthering Heights and Thrushcross Grange. Wuthering Heights remains a classic of English literature, known for its haunting and atmospheric descriptions of the Yorkshire moors, its complex characters, and its exploration of themes such as love, revenge, and the destructive power of obsession. This ends our lecture. We hope you enjoyed this summary and encourage you to read the novel yourself to fully appreciate its enduring impact on literature. Thank you for joining us today on English Language and Literature.